Okay, so this video is about Home Development Mutual Fund. More common, Pag-IBIG is an acronym for Pagtutulungan sa Kinabukasan, Ikaw, Bangko, Industriya, at Gobyerno. Alright? So essentially, Pag-IBIG Fund is, the main point is providing housing loans to its members and also Provident Fund as some sort of, savings, mandatory or compulsory savings for employees of both government and private companies, as well as, of course, self-employed, OFWs, kasambahay. Alright, so in this first part, we're going to go over their website, check the components, and then we will be discussing the law. We're going to go through the clauses, and then the IRR, implementing rules and regulations, and then lastly, we will be seeing the HDMF contribution computation, as well as all the benefits that are available for the members. Okay, and then there's going to be a separate video about the financial statements or the annual reports of Pag-IBIG Fund. Alright, so this is their website, and then they also have the so-called virtual Pag-IBIG. It's some sort of just like the My SSS for the social security system. They have virtual Pag-IBIG, wherein you can create an account and then you can view your contributions, balance of your loan. You can also apply for loans through that, and also invest in MP2, the other program that they have, which is some sort of investment or additional savings. Okay, so if you want to go there, you can click this, and then let's just see their website. So they have this home, basically the information about the Pag-IBIG, and then they have their e-services on this side, and then the news, their activities, their accomplishments, and then articles, anything about the Pag-IBIG, some sort of reports, alright, or news. Then they have payment facilities, over-the-counter, online payment, mobile or internet, digital. And then they have their employer's online facility, payment facility, and then overseas remittance in connection with different financial institutions. Alright. Then we have this transparency seal, corporate governance, governance scorecard, employee welfare announcement, and then claims application, multi-purpose loan. Okay, and then other links in case you are in need of the following: member registration. So if you're a new graduate, or if you are new in the workforce, you get your first job, or you are self-employed, you've decided to start your own business and you want to start saving money or investing, so you can apply for a membership in Pag-IBIG. Okay, the mandatory savings for Pag-IBIG is 2%. It's essentially 4%. Okay, 2% for the employee, 2% for the employer, or if you're self-employed, or if you're the only one who's going to shoulder it. So it's 4% in total, but the maximum mandatory contribution is only 100 pesos. Okay, anything in excess of that, so that's also okay, but that's voluntary. The mandatory is only up to 100 pesos. And then if you'd rather create a separate savings, so they have the modified Pag-IBIG 2, or the so-called MP2. So on top of the contribution, you can also put money into the fund, some sort of savings, but it's separately accounted for. And then you can claim this after 5 years of investing to this account. Whereas the contributions, it's going to be claimable, sorry, is that a word? Or you can get the proceeds upon your retirement, okay, or separation from the membership. Okay, if you cease to have employment, or if you'd rather retire early. Okay, I'm not sure if that's allowed actually. Let's just put it at retirement. Okay, so when you retire, you get all your savings as well as the dividends that your savings have earned. Alright, in MP2 it's essentially the same, but you can this one is withdrawable after 5 years. Okay, and then after 5 years, if you want to continue, you can start another MP2 savings. Okay, So that's about it, the difference of that. And then the main, main service being provided, Home Development Mutual Fund is the name of the organization of the corporation, GOCC. So their main purpose is to provide affordable housing loans to finance their members who would like to buy or acquire their own properties, mainly house and lot or house, right? And then they have multi-purpose loan for any purpose, short-term loan. This is 2 years only. Again, then they have the calamity loan for areas that have been declared, in state of emergency due to calamity, so they can avail of the calamity loan. And then we have the Pag-IBIG savings claim, okay, and then loyalty card plus, if you some sort of points system or reward system. Virtual Pag-IBIG, so you can view your account, your balances, the payments made on your contribution, on your MP2, on your loans. Okay, so you can view them here at Virtual Pag-IBIG, right? Downloadable forms, properties for sale, housing loan affordability calculator, directory, circulars. Alright, so we have this information as well. And then about us, they have all of this. Okay, they have the law, the history, the IRR, mission, vision, fund quality, all the others. Okay, and then you have your programs and benefits, but we'll be, discussing this later on. We have the virtual Pag-IBIG for members and for employers, e-services, loan applications, mostly, and then of course member registration. We have your frequently asked questions about the different types of services, the requirements, conditions, and then we have the properties for sale and then the contact us tab. Alright. So after that, we go now to the discussion of the law, the Republic Act number 9679. Okay, title: an act further strengthening the Home Development Mutual Fund and for other purposes. Title: this act shall be known as the Home Development Mutual Fund Law of 2009, otherwise known as Pag-IBIG, Pagtutulungan sa Kinabukasan, Ikaw, Bangko, Industriya at Gobyerno Fund. Okay. Declaration of policy, justification for the establishment of HDMF. It is the policy of the state to establish, develop, promote, and integrate a nationwide, sound, and viable tax-exempt mutual provident savings system suitable to the needs of the employed and other earning groups, and to motivate them to better plan and provide for their housing needs by membership in the Home Development Mutual Fund, with mandatory contributory support of the employers in the spirit of social justice and the pursuit of national development. Okay, statement of objectives. To improve the quality of life of its citizens by providing them with sufficient shelter. Okay, so that's why they're providing affordable loans so that their members could afford to acquire the properties for their shelter, for their homes. Provide for an integrated nationwide provident savings system, housing through mobilization of funds for shelter finance. Definition of terms: you have the board, compensation, monthly salary, contributions, dependents, legal dependents of a deceased member, employee in the service of an employer who receives compensation, employer, alright, employment, we have the fund, GSIS, investable funds, okay, funds available after deducting costs of operations and expenses, administrative and general expenses, reserves for death benefit claims, provision for sinking fund for return of the member's equity upon maturity, and provision for reserve for loan repayments. Membership term 20 years, provided that he shall have contributed a total of 240 monthly contributions at the time of maturity. Okay. Initial contribution. And then you have your net fund asset, permanent total disability, SSS. And then you have your fund system. To carry out the purposes of this act, hereby created, the HDMF, also referred to herein as the fund, the Mutual Provident Savings System for private and government employees and other earning groups, supported by matching mandatory contributions of their respective employers, with housing as the primary investment. Fund coverage. All employees covered by the SSS and the GSIS and their respective employers, notwithstanding any waiver of coverage previously issued, including the uniformed members of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Bureau of Fire Protection, Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, and the Philippine National Police. Filipinos employed by foreign-based employers, OFWs, spouses who devote full-time to managing the household and family members unless they also engage in another vocation of employment which is subject to mandatory coverage. Self-employed businessmen, business workers may be covered by the fund on a voluntary basis, adopting as a basis of contributions 1/2 of the monthly compensation income of the employed spouse. Coverage may also be extended to other working groups with or without employer contributions, as may be determined by the Board of Trustees. Okay. Fund generation and contributions generated by the Provident Savings that the covered employee shall contribute for the purpose every month, and the equal amounts that their respective employers shall mandatorily contribute. Okay, based on the compensation of covered employees. This is the table actually. Employees earning not more than 1,500 pesos, 1%. Employees earning more than 1,500 pesos per month, 2%. Okay. All employers, 2% of the monthly compensation of all covered employees. But maximum monthly compensation to be used in computing employee and employer contributions shall not be more than 5,000 pesos. So 2% of that is actually 100 pesos. That this maximum may be fixed from time to time by the Board of Trustees through rules and regulations adopted by it. Actually, HDMF, they also have an increase in the rate of their contributions for this year, but they already deferred it, right? I think they would be increasing it some other time, but the increase is, not that high naman. Okay. Membership term, again, it's 20 years. But there are exceptions. Okay, so when earlier terminated by reason of retirement, disability, insanity, death, departure from the country, or other causes, as may be provided for by the Board of Trustees. So that would be allowed. Okay, and then the other, that those who become members of the fund after the effectivity of this act may withdraw the total accumulated value of their contributions to the fund after the 15th year of continuous membership. And then provided further that said members have no outstanding housing loans with the fund. Okay, if there's an outstanding loan, so it would, I think the balance would be deducted. Okay. Finally, that this option shall not prejudice the members' continuing membership in the fund. Okay. Resignation, layoff, or suspension from employment may not necessarily constitute a ground for membership termination, except for suspension of contributions. So if there's, a layoff, suspension from work, or, you resigned, so you temporarily don't have any work, so it's alright for you to, not contribute during those times, but your membership is still in effect, okay? And then when you started working again and you started earning again, so you just contribute to the fund. Okay, waiver or suspension of coverage may, by rules or resolutions of the Board of Trustees, be waived or suspended by reasons of nature of employment, condition of business, ability to make contributions, and other reasonable considerations. Provident character. The fund shall be private in character, owned wholly by the members, administered in trust, and applied exclusively for their benefit. All the personnel and employer contributions shall be fully credited to each member, accounted for individually, and transferable in case of change of employment. They shall earn dividends as may be provided for in the implementing rules. The said amounts shall constitute the provident fund of each member to be paid to him, his estate, or beneficiaries upon termination of membership, or from which preferential benefits for the member may be drawn. Alright? So, what's the difference between SSS, GSIS, and then Pag-IBIG? Essentially, SSS and GSIS, so there's more more factors needed to be taken into consideration. Like who would be availing of the different benefits. Like sickness, not everyone is going to be sick, and then maternity, not everyone is going to get pregnant and give birth or have a miscarriage, and then of course not everyone would be disabled, meet an accident or something. Not everyone would die early. Okay, everyone will die, but at different stages in life. All right, so those are different benefits that are, well, it's essentially available for everyone, but not everyone are going to avail of those services. Okay, of course retirement everyone would, but of course there's also the possibility of that benefit instead of retirement. Okay, so there's that gap, and in a way it's a little, yes, difficult to determine actually how much is needed by the fund to support all those services and to provide some sort of allowance with regards to the needed growth of the contributions that would suffice to the benefits that the particular member is going to avail. Okay, whereas here in Pag-IBIG, okay, essentially what you put in, okay, it's like a savings account, so it operates like a bank. All right, so the money that you put into Pag-IBIG, so it stays there, and then they would use it to invest. Okay, they would from the earnings of those investments, of course, they would deduct a certain amount or a certain percentage to contribute to their operating expenses, of course, and then what's left in the form of dividends would be credited to your account. So essentially, what you put in the fund plus the dividends, that's the amount that you will get when you retire or when you terminate your membership with the fund. You get it as a whole, but then there are no other benefits that you can get, and like the in SSS and GSIS there are those other benefits that you can get. Like you get the nature of SSS and GSIS, of course, it's insurance, and this benefits for unexpected events, like sickness, death, accidents, disabilities, and all that. All right. And then we have here in Pagibig, one of the reasons I think why they are quiet, they don't have that much problem in the management of the fund. They have no issues, so to speak, or problematic problems. Essentially, they don't have that much problems with regards to the management, and there's not a lot of questions with regards to their operations because it's very simple. All right. And then the other service that they're providing, of course, the loans. All right, the members can borrow from them, although they would also be faced with the possibility that the members or the borrowers would not be able to pay. But of course, that's how it is with regards to borrowing. So essentially, their earnings would have to shoulder or absorb those losses or allowances for defaulted payments, okay, or for the non-payments of some of those borrowings. Okay, but essentially HDMF, the operation is much simpler than SSS and GSIS. Okay, what you put in it plus the dividends, that's what you're going to get, whereas in SSS and GSIS, again, it will depend on your situation. Okay, depending on the different types of circumstances that you would experience during the duration of your membership. So you could get more than what you contributed, or you can get lesser than the amount that you contributed. All right. Housing features. Okay, a member of good standing shall be eligible to apply for housing loans under such terms and conditions as may be authorized by the Board of Trustees, taking into account the ability to pay. That's why one of the requirements is the pay slip or certification from the employer of how much you are earning every month. Okay, and there, of course, they're also looking at the net pay that you are getting. The Board of Trustees shall institute policies to ensure that lower income members obtain such housing loans. Alright. Implementing body, the Home Development Mutual Fund created under this act shall implement the provisions hereof. Powers and functions of the fund. So these are what they can do. Formulate, adopt, amend, and/or rescind such rules and regulations as may be necessary to carry out the provisions and purposes of this act, as well as the effective exercise of powers and functions and the discharge of duties and responsibilities of the fund, its officers, and employees. To adopt or approve the annual and supplemental budget of receipts and expenditures, including salaries and allowances of fund personnel, authorize such capital and operating expenditures, acquisition of PPE, and then operating expenditures, disbursements of the fund as may be necessary and proper for the effective management and operation of the fund. To submit annually to the President of the Philippines, not later than March 15, a report of its activities and the state of the fund during the preceding year, including information and recommendations for the development and improvement thereof. Invest not less than 70% of its investable funds to housing. Okay, because essentially they are home development mutual fund. To acquire, utilize, or dispose of in any manner recognized by law real or personal properties to carry out the purposes of this act. Okay. Normally, when they provide housing loans, the house itself or the property being acquired, it's being used as mortgage. Okay, so in case the borrower, the member, is unable to pay off their loans, so the property is actually going to be, in the name of Home Development Mutual Fund. So in case of default, the property would be a property of Home Development Mutual Fund, and of course, to get back the investment, so they might have to sell or dispose of the property. Okay, next, to set up its own accounting and computer systems, to conduct continuing actuarial and statistical studies and valuations, to determine the financial viability of the fund and its project, to require reports, compilations, and analyses of statistical and economic data, as well as make such other studies and surveys as may be needed for the proper administration and development of the fund. Excuse me. To have the power of succession, to sue and be sued, to adopt and to use a corporate seal, to enter into and carry out contracts of every kind and description with any person, firm or association or corporation, domestic or foreign. To borrow funds from any source, private or government, foreign or domestic. To invest, own, or otherwise participate in equity in any establishment, firm, or entity, to form, organize, invest in, or establish and maintain a subsidiary or subsidiaries in relation to any of its purposes. Okay. Approve appointments in the fund. Maintain a provident fund. Consists of contributions made both by the fund and its officers and employees and their earnings. Okay. To design and adopt an early retirement incentive plan for its own personnel, establish field offices. Approve restructuring proposal for the payment of due but unremitted contributions and paid loan amortization, so some sort of condonation program as well. To determine, fix, and impose interest and penalties upon unpaid contributions due from employers and employees. To ensure the collection and recovery of all indebtedness, liabilities, and or accountabilities, including unpaid contributions in favor of the fund arising from any cause or source or whatsoever. Okay, so we have those. Design and implement other programs that will further promote and mobilize savings and provide additional resources. So I think MP2 is under this. To conduct continuing actuarial, statistical studies, valuations to determine the financial condition of the fund. Okay. Readjust the benefits, contributions, interest rates of the allocation or reallocation of the funds to the contingencies covered. Okay, and then you have the Board of Trustees composition, who will be the chairman, the vice chairman. You have your Secretary of DOLE, Secretary of Finance, Secretary of the DBM. So essentially, these are the people that are occupying a position in HDMF. And then 5 appointive members, 2 from the private employees representative, and then 2 from private employers, and then 1 representative of government employee. All right. So you have that, and then the powers of the board. Rule-making power, fund earnings, distribution, investment, interim disbursements, benefits contributions, rates, premium rates, interest rates, housing, and loan. Other loan assistance programs for the members. Powers and duties of the CEO, money investments, exemption from tax, legal process and lien, government guarantee. Okay, I like this. Okay, with regards to GSIS, SSS, PhilHealth, and Pagibig, this is one of the important clauses here. Government guarantee. The benefits prescribed in this act shall not be diminished, and to guarantee said benefits, the government of the Republic of the Philippines accepts general responsibility for the solvency of the fund. Okay. Administrative costs. The fund shall bear the cost of its administration and development in such amounts and/or limits as the Board of Trustees may deem appropriate, but not exceeding 2% of the net fund assets of the previous year, excluding operating costs directly relating to the lending operations of the fund. Oh, I like this. Okay. Okay, so essentially, they can only use 2% of the net fund assets from the previous year. So if they are the investment is also the net fund assets, and let's say the whole fund generates an income of, let's say, 8 to 12%, and then they use 2% for their operation. So, essentially the fund would really be able to grow, okay? And, there's not many risks. Okay, it's not as risky as the insurance with the SSS and GSIS. Anyway, next, audit. So the chairman of the Commission on Audit shall act as the official auditor of the fund. Remittance of contributions. Duty of every employer, private or public, to set aside and remit the contributions required under this act in accordance with a mechanism determined by the Board of Trustees. So they also have the schedule on the due dates, and then essentially the due dates. Okay. Every employer is required to set aside and remit such contributions as prescribed under this act and shall be liable for their payment. Non-payment shall further subject the employer a penalty of 3% per month. Okay, so it's very important to remit them on time. All right. It shall be mandatory and compulsory for all government instrumentalities, agencies, including GOCCs, to provide the payment of contributions in their annual appropriations. Penal sanctions shall be imposed upon these employers who fail to include the payment of contributions on time or delay the remittance of the required contributions to the fund. The heads of offices and agencies shall be administratively liable for non-remittance of the required contributions to the fund. Failure or refusal of the employer to pay or to remit shall not prejudice the right of the covered employee to the benefits of this act. So basically, the employer, if they don't remit, they would be held accountable. But on the part of the member, it would be as if those contributions have been provided and that they can still avail the benefits. Okay. Contributions, in cases where an employer refuses or neglects to pay the same, shall be collected by the fund in the same manner as taxes are made collectible under the NIRC tax code. The right to institute the necessary action against the employer may be commenced within 20 years from the time delinquency is known or the assessment is made by the fund. From the time the benefit accrues, as the case may be. Employment records and reports. Okay. The employer shall submit the records, the list, okay, when they remit. Penal provisions, they have that. Penalty, offenses, failures, refusal, delays. Alright, there would be penalties, imprisonment, or fine. Not less than, but not more than twice the amount involved. Existing coverage. Okay, and then you have visitorial and enforcement powers. The fund or its duly authorized representative empowered to inspect the premises, book of accounts, and records of any person or entity covered by this act. Mainly employers, okay? Public or private. Implementing rules and regulations will be published 90 days after approval of this act. Separability clause, repealing clause, and then of course you have your effectivity. Okay. So we now go to the implementing rules and regulations. So this is from the official gazette.gov.ph. Implementing rules for RA 9679 or the Home Development Mutual Fund Law of 2009, otherwise known as Pag-IBIG. Again, nakipagtutulungan sa Kinabukasan, Ikaw, Bangko, Industriya, at Gobyerno. Okay, preliminary provisions, so title, and then you have your construction, declaration of state policy, and funds objectives, so we've already covered it earlier. Definition of terms, the same. Okay, total accumulated value, this would be the member's contribution and the employer's required contributions, plus the corresponding dividends credited to the account of the member. Organization, administration, powers, and functions of the HDMF. Okay, alright. I'm not sure. It's essentially the same as what's in the RA, right? Okay, so there are new ones here. So you have to borrow funds from any source, private or government, foreign or domestic, to invest, own, or otherwise participate in equity, okay, investment in stocks. What else is new? To design and adopt an early retirement incentive plan for its own personnel. I think we've also read this earlier. Okay. Board of Trustees, we've had this. Powers of the board, rule-making power. CEO, organization, administrative structures, of staffing pattern, administration cost, 2%, audit, exemption, money investments. Okay, fund coverage and membership. Alright. All employees who are compulsory covered by SSS, provided that for the purpose of mandatory coverage in the fund of persons who are compulsory covered by the SSS, the term employee shall be understood the manner by which the SSS defines it, and shall include but not limited to private employee, whether permanent, temporary, or provisional, who is not over 60 years old. Household helper earning at least 1,000 a month. Household helper is any person who renders domestic services exclusively to a household, such as driver, gardener, cook, governess, and other similar occupations. So, kasambahay. A Filipino seafarer upon signing of the standard contract of employment between the seafarer and the manning agency, which, together with the foreign ship owner, act as employers. Self-employed person, regardless of trade, business, or occupation, with an income of at least 1,000 a month and not over 60 years old. This includes but not limited to self-employed professionals, business partners, single proprietors and board, directors, actors, actresses, directors, scriptwriters, news reporters who are not under an employer-employee relationship, professional athletes, coaches, trainers, jockeys, farmers, fisherfolks, workers in the informal sector such as cigarette vendors, washer car boys, among others. Okay. Wow, they're also covered. Provided that, of course, it's good enough for everyone to be covered actually. Provided that a self-employed person subject to compulsory coverage by the SSS shall be treated by the fund as both employee and employer at the same time. Essentially because they're self-employed. And shall therefore be required to pay both the employee and the corresponding employer contributions. Provided finally that the actual membership in the SSS shall not be a condition precedent for mandatory coverage in the fund, it being sufficient that the person ought to be covered compulsorily by the SSS. Okay, so it's actually for the self-employed or for voluntary, so-called voluntary membership. It's a right for them not to be a member of SSS, but they can start saving for Pag-IBIG fund, right? Ought to be covered, but not essentially an actual member to be a precedent for mandatory coverage in the fund. All employees who are subject to mandatory coverage by the GSIS regardless of their employment status, so they're also going to be members of Pag-IBIG. Uniform members of the AFP, BFP, BJMP, and the PNP. Filipinos employed by foreign-based employers, OFWs. Coverage under the fund shall be mandatory for Filipinos employed by foreign-based employers, whether deployed here or abroad or a combination thereof, but whose respective employers are exclusively based outside of the Philippines. The employer shall not be subject to mandatory coverage, provided that if the employer maintains an office or agent in the Philippines that effectively acts as employer of the Filipino, then such office or agent shall be deemed an employer subject to mandatory coverage. Excuse me. Employers of employees compulsorily covered by the SSS shall include private employers previously granted waiver or suspension of coverage for whatever reason. Manning agencies together with the foreign ship owner shall be considered jointly and severally as the employers of Filipino seafarers. Self-employed persons subject to compulsory coverage shall be treated as both employee and employer at the same time. Employers of employees subject of mandatory coverage by the GSIS, AFP, BFP, BJMP, and PNP. Alright. Voluntary coverage. Persons who are at least 18 years but not more than 65 are not subject to mandatory coverage, may be covered by the fund on a voluntary basis, subject to such terms and conditions stated in these rules or as the board may impose, and shall include but not limited to the following: spouses who devote full-time to managing the household and family affairs, unless they also engage in another vocation or employment which is subject to mandatory coverage. Filipino members of foreign government or international organization or their wholly owned instrumentality based in the Philippines in the absence of an administrative agreement with the fund. Employees of an employer who is granted a waiver or suspension. Okay. Leaders and members of religious groups. Members separated from employment, local or abroad, cease to be self-employed but would like to continue paying his or her personal contribution. Such member may be a pensioner, investor, or any individual with passive income or allowances. Public officials or employees who are not covered by the GSIS, barangay officials, barangay chairman, barangay council members, chairman of Sangguniang Kabataan, and barangay secretaries and treasurers. I didn't know that they are not covered, alright? Why aren't they? Such other earning groups as may be determined by the board by rules and regulations, provided that any foreign government, international organization, or their wholly owned instrumentality employing workers in the Philippines or employing Filipinos outside of the Philippines may enter into an agreement with the fund for the inclusion of their employees as members of the fund. Provided further that the terms of such agreement shall conform with the provisions of RA 9679 and these rules and coverage and the amount. Okay. Effective date of mandatory, first day of the business operation or that of the employee, date of employment. What else? Shall take effect January 1, 2010 unless a different date is set by the board. Employers. Expiration of their respective suspension or waiver of coverage. Voluntary members. Actual date of registration. Okay. Actual membership in the fund shall commence only upon remittance of the initial contribution and not at the point of registration. Okay, you filled out the form, I submitted it, but you did not pay the contribution, or you're not yet a member of the fund. Membership will only commence after the payment of the first contribution. Registration of employers. Okay. All new employers shall first register with the fund prior to the start of their business operations. Okay. Part of registration rules of businesses. And as for the employees, they could channel this through their respective employers. Okay. And then registration of the self-employed. So within 30 days from the date he or she started to be self-employed. A membership term, again, 20 years or less. Okay, depending on the situations we've covered earlier. Termination of membership anytime upon the occurrence of any of the following: membership term maturity, the 20 years, death, retirement, permanent total disability or insanity, permanent departure from the country, termination from the service by reason of health, other causes. Okay, occurrences other than the above, resignation, layoff, or suspension from employment, not a ground for termination, but only suspension of paying the contributions. And then the retirement, any member shall be compulsorily retired under the fund upon reaching the age of 65. The member may, however, opt to retire earlier under the fund upon the occurrence of any of the following events, provided the member is not a member borrower with outstanding loans. Actual retirement from SSS, RGSIS, or from government service by provision of law, early retirement. Retirement under a separate employer provident or retirement plan, provided that the member is at least 45 years old at the age of retirement, upon reaching the age of 60. In the event that the member opts to retire earlier from the fund for reasons stated under items B and C, continues to or subsequently places himself or herself in a situation which would subject him or herself to mandatory coverage, then the member shall continue to be mandatorily covered by the fund. Okay? Her employer mandated to continue deducting and remitting the contribution, together with the corresponding employer's counterpart. Permanent total disability, so temporary total disability lasting continuously for more than 120 days. Okay, complete loss of sight of both eyes, 2 limbs, permanent complete paralysis of 2 limbs, brain injury, and resulting in incurable imbecility or insanity, such other cases. Okay. Existing membership and coverage, so we will be discussing the benefits later on. Contributions, again, if not more than 1.5 per month, only 1%. If earning more than 1,500 per month, so 2%, and then the employers 2%. But we have again the maximum monthly compensation, which is 5,000, making the maximum contribution 100 pesos for the employer and the employee. Okay, but of course, if you'd like to contribute more, the 2%, so that's also allowed. Allowed to contribute more than what is required, should he or she so desires. The employer, however, shall only be mandated to contribute what is required, okay, unless the employer agrees to match the member's increased contribution. So I've had one employer do this, so 2% is being deducted from the employees, and then 2% is also being contributed by the employer. I think it's been a practice from the very beginning, so in a way, it's a good thing because, you know, the savings that goes into the account of the employees is higher. Okay. Notwithstanding any contract to the contrary, an employer shall not deduct directly or indirectly from the compensation of its employees covered by the fund, or otherwise recover from them the employer's contribution with respect to such employees. Okay. The employer's contribution, their counterpart, should be, shouldered by the employer and not to be deducted from the employees. Full-time spouse, okay, so you have that. On the basis of monthly contributions, 1/2 of the monthly compensation. Okay. Contributions of member with multiple employers. In cases where a member has 2 or more employers, such member shall contribute monthly to the fund a percentage of his or her monthly compensation per employer, which shall be matched by the latter in accordance with Section 1 of this rule. Collection and remittance, employer's fiduciary obligation, method and collection of payment, remittance of collections, okay, serve the penalty, no retroactive payment of contribution, remittance of contributions of self-employed and voluntary members, effect of leave without pay or suspension from employment, effect of resignation or separation from employment, waiver or suspension of fund coverage, existing waiver suspension. Okay. Benefits. Okay. Mandatory contributory support of the employer. Acts of the employer shall not prejudice the member. Exemption from tax, legal process, and lian. This is for the HDMF. Dividends. Return of contributions. Wait. The board shall set aside annually an amount which in no case shall be less than 70% of the annual net income of the fund to be paid in the form of dividends to members. The members' contributions, inclusive of the employees and employers' contributions, shall earn dividends which shall be distributed annually and credited to his or her TAB. Only members with outstanding TAV as of year-end shall be entitled to dividends declared for that particular year. All dividend earnings shall be tax-free. Okay, so it's a good investment. Return of contributions. A member shall be entitled to receive his total accumulated value upon termination of membership. Okay, less any and all pending obligations if there's outstanding loans. In the event of death, the member's heirs shall likewise receive the same less any and all pending obligations with the fund. Housing features, so eligible to apply for housing loans, benefit programs, portability of membership, transfer to another employer who becomes self-employed, so carries with him his total accumulated value. Optional withdrawal of contributions, those who become members of the fund, okay. 15 years of continuous membership, no outstanding housing loan. The exercise of this option by the member shall not be considered as a ground to terminate his membership with the fund. The member shall continue to be mandatorily covered, and his or her employer is mandated to continue deducting and remitting, okay? As long as you're working. Death benefits, okay, the beneficiaries will be entitled to the death benefits and the TAB, of course. And then you have your government guarantee. Again, Pagibi contributions are excluded from the computation of the gross income. Adjudication of claims and disputes, okay. So I'm not going to discuss this, but you can read this in your own sweet time. Proof of death of a member, certificate of death, okay. Unclaimed savings or dividends. Any amount standing to the credit of any member for a period of 1 year after termination of membership shall be regarded as unclaimed savings and shall be reclassified as an account payable to the former member by the fund. If any such amount standing to the credit of such person remains unclaimed for a period of more than 10 years, the same shall be reverted to the fund's retained earnings. Employment records, reports, general provisions, okay. Penalties, separability, repealing, and effectivity. Alright. So lastly, we have the benefits. Okay. What's it? This is an article from Yahoo Moneymax. Okay, so mainly affordable housing loans, right? How to become a member? So just go to the e-services. There's the membership registration. You can do this online. Okay, actually they do encourage those who would like to become members to register online. I don't think they still accept through through their offices. During my time, we registered through online already. That's 2013. Okay, how much is the Pag-IBIG contribution? So we've discussed this. For employees, so these are the rates. Benefits. So the first is the Pag-IBIG savings program. This is where your monthly contributions go. If you're an employed Pag-IBIG member, your monthly savings is immediately doubled. Essentially, because half of it is deducted from your salary, and then the other half is contributed by your employer. So essentially, it's double. And then of course, the fund will invest the pooled contributions from the members, and then any earnings from that, net of their administrative or operating expenses, would be distributed depending on the outstanding TAV of all the members. So it's going to earn dividends every year. Okay, you can earn more dividends by increasing your monthly Pag-IBIG contribution because it is based on your outstanding TAV. So let's say you have this new member who only contributed for a period of 1 year, and then the minimum, so let's say his TAV is 2,400, and you have here a member for 5 years already, and he's been contributing the 2%. So let's say the TAV is 10,000. So you have here 2,400, you have here 10,000. So when the dividends are distributed, of course, this person with the TAV of 10,000 would receive more compared to this person with only 2,400 of TAV. Okay, so that's how it works. So you increase your earnings by increasing your contribution as well. You can withdraw your Pag-IBIG if any of the following occurs. Again, maturity 20 years, And then, or at your retirement, or separation from service due to health reasons, mga nag-early retirement, total disability or insanity, permanent departure from the country upon death, the heirs or the beneficiaries would receive the benefit. Critical illness of the member or their immediate family member, which would require them to take care of that immediate family member. Okay, and then we have the Pag-IBIG MP2 program. This is additional savings. If you want to save more and earn more, through their dividends, up to 7% dividend rate, get dividends annually or 5 years, you can elect this. Okay, upon your registration to MP2 program, you can choose whether to receive annually or in 5 years. Okay, and then this is open to retirees and pensioners. Okay, and of course to current members as well. Voluntary Savings Facility for active or former Pag-IBIG members who wish to earn even higher annual dividends. You can enroll if you have a regular, even if you have a regular Pag-IBIG savings membership. Okay, minimum savings amount is 500 pesos per month. Okay, your MP2 earns tax-free dividends at a rate higher than the dividend rate of the regular programs. These dividends are from 70% of the Pag-IBIG fund's annual net income. You can receive Pag-IBIG MP2 earnings by, after its 5-year maturity period with MP2 dividends compounded annually through annual payout, credited to your account enrolled in Pag-IBIG accredited banks. Okay, and then you also have your Pag-IBIG Loyalty Card Plus. I've never used my loyalty card because I don't normally, shop. Okay, so there are certain Pag-IBIG partner establishments wherein you can get discounts when you buy from their shops. Okay, you can apply for this one. Just visit the nearest Pag-IBIG branch, provide your membership number, fill out the form, and pay the card fee. Have your picture taken, fingerprints, all information is validated, so you can claim your card. And then of course we have the Pag-IBIG housing loans. This is the main service that they provide. Okay, so they have the affordable housing loan for minimum wage earners, and they have end user home financing program. Okay, affordable loan amount is up to 750,000, interest rate 3% per annum. End user loan amount up to 6 million, interest rate is 5.5% per annum. It's very low. Okay, it's really going to be affordable. Housing loan requirements: active member with at least 24 months of contribution, not more than 65 years old. Housing loan application form to be filled up with gross monthly income of at least 14,000 for the AHP, Affordable Housing Loan. I thought you said this is for minimum wage earners. Okay, there are certain regions wherein the minimum wage monthly, the EMR is around 11,000, I think. Okay, I think this is for Manila, but I think it's higher. Proof of income, so payslip or certification from employer, 2 valid IDs, tax declaration or your ITR, income tax return, vicinity map or sketch residence. Okay, and then you have your Pag-IBIG mortgage redemption insurance. Okay, when you get a Pag-IBIG housing loan, you're required to get a mortgage redemption insurance. It ensures that your mortgage is covered in the event of death or critical illness. However, you need to pay for the MRI premiums yourself. Alright, Pag-IBIG calamity loan. So if you're in an area affected by calamity and it's been declared in a state of emergency, so you can if your property has been damaged or if you have immediate need for money, so you can apply for the calamity loan. Okay, there are certain requirements as well. Active member with 24 months of contribution. Area must be declared under state of calamity, yes, and then fill out the loan application form, 2 valid IDs. And then of course we also have the Pag-IBIG salary loan. Do they still call it salary loan? I think they call it MPL now, multipurpose loan. Okay, yes, also known as Pag-IBIG multipurpose loan, sorry. Okay, this is a short-term loan, 2 years only. Okay, and then you can borrow up to 80% of your total Pag-IBIG savings. Must be an active member with at least 24 months of contribution, multi-purpose loan application form, and then 2 valid IDs. Pag-IBIG Provident Benefits. So as a contributing member, you can get your savings upon retirement, okay, optional or mandatory retirement age. You can also claim if you're at least 45 years old if you've already paid 20 years worth of contribution. Okay, you must be between 24 to 65 years old, at least 20 years contribution. File the form, Provident Benefits form. 2 valid IDs, birth certificate, SSS or GSIS retirement voucher, notarized certificate or early retirement, order of retirement, updated statement of service, date of last payment. Okay. And then lastly, we have the death benefit. So if you are the legal heir or beneficiary of a deceased Pagibig member, you can claim their TAV. Okay. If the member did not claim their savings benefits when they were still alive. Pagibig doesn't offer funeral or death benefits. So that would be from SSS. And then where death benefits and retirement benefits are separate. Death benefits requirements, death certificate of member issued by PSA, notarized proof of surviving legal heirs, and then certificate of non-marriage if applicable, marriage contract, notarized affidavit of guardianship, other documents that may be required. Okay. So there are other information here on how to claim the benefits. Okay, so housing loan, you have all these documents. There's also processing fee for the housing loan. Okay, and of course, sometimes if your purpose of the loan is to construct a house, you would also need to provide the building plan, that kind of thing. Pag-IBIG loan calamity, okay. Provident, Pag-IBIG fund. Okay, so that's it for this video. We've discussed Pag-IBIG, the law, the IRR, and the benefits that they have. So that's it for this one. Thanks and bye.